generation Ruby Valley rancher. Family Ranch is the Sharp
I
Ranch,
didn't get
and it's on the
up.
east side of the Ruby Mountains. Val lives about 30 miles south on the Wines Ranch. My daughter and husband and 2 granddaughters are on the ranch too, so that's wonderful. The family goes back to the Wines side and the Sharp side. The Wineses arrived in Ruby Valley in about 1865, and the Sharps were a little closer, I think, to 1900. The ranch, it starts with my great-grandparents, Louis and Florence Sharp. Now I have some family photos that kind of show some of that in the picture of the ranch. I had cooked with my grandma Sharp, Gertrude, and so I've got her mincemeat recipe is hers, and my grandma Phillips is on my dad's side from Tuscarora, at her rolls. What we're going to do for you today is put together a meal that we would prepare for a branding. And so we've got our beef as our main course, and potatoes and some rolls, and just something that we would do to serve to the guys. And the guys especially like the meat and potato and all the carbs and the pies. We'll get started with our rolls just because we need the time so we can have some hot rolls for lunch. I'll start with my 2 cups of flour. This is 2 1/4 teaspoon, which is equal to a packet, I believe, of yeast. And so then we want 3 of those. I end up usually about starting with 3 more cups, and then as I go along, maybe 1 more cup. It's usually about 4 cups is all. Does anyone want to knead? Does anyone feel like they would just love to do that this morning? You look like you know what you're doing. I'm not going to give instructions. You know what you're doing.
The guy's got to eat.
I actually one time sat down with paper and pen and thought, I'm going to watch you from beginning to end to see exactly how she'd do it, because I would make them, and of course, they would come out the same. And that day, she happened to pull out about 5 cookbooks for her recipe. Anyway, and she says, well, today, she'd look at the weather outside, let's see if it's a little stormy or warm with, and then, well, I think I'll do this much sugar and this much salt. Oh, there's no way I could duplicate these because you change this up every time you make these. And so I swear that it's in the wrist. I usually grease my pan, throw it in, and we'll grease the top. Cover it with wax paper and a dish towel. And you guys can see. Live in an old house that's very cold. So a lot of times I'll just use the oven, turn it to 200, turn it off, put it in, and that'll keep it from having any drafts. We have a wood stove too, that works nice. A lot of times I'll just do the hour, and then we'll make them into rolls, raise it for another 20 minutes, and then we'll bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes. She would use cookie cutter, and we dip them in butter, fold them in half, and put them in the pan. I usually dip them with the backside, and then we'll just put them in here.
Okay.
And I think 3 or 4 across is what I've done. And I'll give you a trick here. This is what she do.
Oh,
So you don't have to re-roll so many times for that. So.
You grease the pan?
And, yeah, grease the pan.
She said, really?
Yeah.
So I think because the rolls. Glazier, Jennifer's neighbor, came up with this recipe years and years ago, and the cattle women, well, cowbells back in the day, but cattle women now, will make these meatballs for many occasions to promote beef. Since the first cowboy poetry, we have been doing the meatballs for a reception.
The members' reception. So if any of you will be there, you'll have these again.
And what I found, I really like using my food processor for this, and it's kind of like the finer, the better. It seems like the meatball will hold together better. Soft breadcrumbs, or I've used panko breadcrumbs. Roll it out to those 1-inch size balls, which is real small, and bake, and definitely can freeze to use later. So that sting out.
You just now, in December.
Okay, so it's Grandma Jill's twice baked potatoes. Grandma Jill is actually my stepmom, Jill Phillips, and Grandma Jill to the girls. She, I think there's many variations of this out there. This is one she came up with years ago. It's really nice because we're not using real potatoes, but they are real potatoes.
No, they're good.
Right. And for years, I've loved the Betty Crocker brand. I cannot find that in Elko anymore, so I kind of have had to adapt it a little bit for these Idaho brand. We've used these for weddings, and I did it for her daughter. Val's done it for my daughters. And we have made, well, for yours, we had 5 roasterfuls of potatoes. But it's so nice because you can make this all up, the day before. And we have, fortunately, a walk-in cooler and to go in there, and then you just reheat them later. So this is definitely one you could do prior and just reheat later. And it's lots of butter, cheese. I mean, you can't go wrong. For this recipe is the one box. So we have found that if you were going to do it for a bigger crowd, I mean, this would really serve 25, 30 people, maybe more. But for like branding and stuff, or if we have 100 people or something, you can 3 times this recipe will fill a roaster.
Oh,
I use the 12 cups of water, 5 cups of milk, and this time whole milk is what I've used. And then we put our cube of butter in to melt, so it will mix easier. I'll dump my whole box in. I've got the butter, the milk, and the water already heated. And so I will start pouring, and then I'll let you just stir. It's kind of tricky because it's like you want to stir fast, but 48 ounces of the sour cream. I like fresh chives, and I have them in my garden, in the summertime. And I went to the store the other day, they did not have fresh chives in the store. So this is good backup, especially if you're living out in the country and you can't get to the store too often. But I'm going to use these today. You can also use green onions, just chop them up fine. Just let you keep stirring, you're doing great. That doesn't work, I guess.
how much chives you said you did?
You know what? Is that what it was? Yeah, probably that was about right. I think if you buy the fresh, like 1 bunch or 2 bunches, a couple cups of grated cheese. I like the Tillamook, medium. Yes. Are you from Oregon? Yes. I actually went through Tillamook one time. I thought, I want to stop and see the cheese factory. I love the Tillamook, yeah. Probably a good. And actually, I said 2 cups, but I really like a lot more. So I say at least start with a teaspoon. Sometimes, sometimes potatoes are bland. More.
But really nice potatoes.
And on the pepper, let's see. I'm going to just start with maybe a teaspoon. Combination.
Lasted for 70 years.
And all of this quiz of lot. Been a handy roast recipe for branding, and this actually came from the Albertsons butcher through Val. He said one of the easiest ways to get a nice tender roast for a big group, he either uses chuck roast or the bottom round roast. And so I have the Albertsons butcher. We can't go with this Albertsons thing. Jenny and I run into each other all the time at Albertsons. They really should set up a couple chairs for us.
It's a meeting place. It's a social place.
It's a social place. But yeah, I just asked the butcher to cut up to a 10-pound roast. I did that bottom round roast today to use. And anyway, so then we'll use the electric roaster. But for demonstration purposes, we've got part of the bottom round roast, and we're going to just season it to your heart's desire, whatever your favorite seasoning is. And we're gonna just cover all sides, so it's well seasoned. He had suggested Montreal steak seasoning. I used that today. I have had one of the other neighbor ladies doing it for brandy. She has used from Costco this organic no salt seasoning, but she'll throw in garlic powder and probably some salt, just to taste. Now, my family, a lot of times for prime rib, we will use the seasoned salt and the lemon pepper combination. I love that one. More the better. And then we use good old garlic powder too. I'll just season this, place them in the electric roaster with 4 cups of beef broth. I ended up with 8 cups this time just to make sure I had enough moisture and liquid in there. But I think the 4 cups is really a good place to start. And you might not need any more. What we've done is if you want to eat at noon for brandy, get up at 2 in the morning. What we'll do though is get the meat in there and just set it on the counter. And so all you've got to do is I'm not quite awake, plug it in at 2:50, 2 in the morning, and 10 hours later it is excellent.
What if you don't have a roaster?
I would just say a big roasting pan and put it in the oven at the 250. Yeah, something large enough roasting pan. Yeah.
But you do it for 10 hours.
Yeah, I can still. Yeah, that's slow and low. Yeah.
And actually, I use a smaller roast. I'll just do it in the crock pot.
Yeah, I was going to say,
It's just
I
a
have
small.
And do you do it
Done it.
on low or do you do it on high?
I do it on low. 10 hours.
For about the same amount of time.
Do you? Okay. No. Okay. You know what, I think.
I know you're laying in bed and you're going, oh yeah, it started.
Our family grew up with it. Christmas time was Thanksgiving and Christmas was mainly when she'd make the pies. So it's kind of, I think of the holidays. So this is kind of out of season, doing it in January. My uncle, who owns the Sharp Ranch, he absolutely loves mincemeat. So it's this huge treat for him, for me to make it every year at Christmas. And he had a story. Well, I guess I should go along. As we make it, it needs to sit for about 3 weeks to marry. And back in the day, my grandmother would make it and then put it in a crock pot, or a crock, and with a lid. And then we had the cellar, and she'd put it in there to keep it cool, for 3 weeks. He said they knew it was out there, absolutely loved mincemeat. And he and his cousin, who were just little at the time, they'd be out playing, whatever, on the ranch, and they'd go, I'm really hungry. And they'd sneak into the cellar. They'd open the car. In went their hands, scooped it out, and enjoyed it. I'm sure your mother knew this at some point, but I had those dirty hands if she into it. But what a treat, for him. So anyway, I grew up with it using beef. Now my dad grew up using venison. His mom always made venison. So he swore the venison side. So I've got my dad's side of venison, my mom's side's the beef. And when my mom was making it, she was using beef. She wasn't touching the venison. So I grew up more with the beef. On this, I've done the full recipe of how my grandma would do it. And it makes the 6 to 7 pies. And for demo purposes, I'm just going to half it today. Yeah, use about a 3-pound beef rump roast and something, not a lot of fat. You want mainly, and then cut your fat off that you can. And then what I've done is just cut it into chunks and I'll process it in the food processor. This is my favorite bowl when I make the whole batch. Keep it in the fridge. So we'll quarter the apples. Just, we want to keep the peel on.
That's raw.
So did you say that
8 pounds of chopped apples is like 16.
16
That's what I
ounces.
thought you said.
And I'm using Granny Smith. Sometimes I'll mix, if you have favorites, but I kind of like it on the tart side. So I'll do this, at least half would be Granny Smith, and maybe, I think I've used Jonnet Gold, maybe Gaelic. Kind of depends what the store has too.
And you only cook the meat about a half an hour?
And I think, until it's done.
When it's in hot water?
Yeah, just in some hot water in a pot, covered pot. I'll use raisins. I've just got 2 pounds today. I'll put 4 pounds of raisins in.
How you know when if it's gonna go bad? You know, is there a point where maybe things will start going bad, or is
I've had
all
one batch do that, and I don't know why. It was in the fridge. But otherwise, I've had good luck. But about 3 weeks is it, and then either use it or freeze it, and it freezes fine.
But you have to do it for 3 weeks, right? You could just
That's-
cook it the same day, correct? There needs to be
Oh,
some
yeah, you need to let it sit.
break
I'll
down
show you
and
what
stuff
the
like that, you know, it's
fermentation
kind of interesting.
Kind
you
of
know?
ferment, yeah.
Yeah,
And Grandma, well, and you start with apple cider, but you can use alcohol to enhance if you would like. So I think some of that helped it ferment and maybe keep it from going bad. Depending on how much alcohol you put in. I have made it just with apple cider and it's fine. But this time I added about a cup of the white Christmas rum and brandy. Okay, so I'm going to add the salt. It's not the same. Anyway, a little cloves. I will add, this recipe should only take like, yeah. And I get it where it's moist. And really, and then I'll cover this, put it in the fridge and check on it in about 3 days. And that's when you can tell if you need more moisture at that point. And it usually does. I will add, I'll save some of this, you know, or just add some more. So you want it moist but not overly. And then you can add your, like we said, whiskey, some brandy. After 3 weeks, this is the texture, so it'll change on you. Anyway, I've turned it into mincemeat pies, and so we'll have that too. My uncle, with the pie, he likes it with just regular granulated sugar on the top of the pie crust and eat it cold. And I have had Jim Wright from Tuscarora. He grew up with his mom making a hard sauce put over their pie, and I'm not sure if they eat it warm, also warm, but with a hard sauce. I'd never heard of that one before, so I thought, I know there's different variations of how people enjoy it. Anyway, our family, ice cold is usually best.
so it's not a main dish, it's
It's a dessert.
a
Is
dessert.
it more of a dessert?
My mom makes a hard sauce for her.
Does she? Okay. And do you like it warm? Your pie warmed up? Or is your hard?
We usually have the pie at room temperature and hard sauce is out of the refrigerator.
What do you think so far? Can we say anything?
I don't even really taste the meat.
Well, and that's really it.
I've never had it like this. It's a lot better than what my but I bet my grandmother used suet too, because they used all that stuff in the range. Yeah, or lard maybe. I don't know.
This is before food processor days, and we'd get the old meat
The meat
grinder.
grinder, yes, that's what they used.
Took all afternoon, and you'd be, you know, you'd cut up your meat and go through the grinder. And I can't remember, I don't think she grounded raisins, but it was quite a process. So as she got older, you know, I would help her with it. When the food processors came out, I said, Grandma, we can do this quicker. She marveled at that. I can remember my grandma saying in the kitchen I was baking in yesterday, they used to have wood stoves. You know, it's about 140 years old, this house. So it's seen electricity. In the day when they had the big crews, and it would be like 30, they would be feeding for breakfast, lunch, and supper. They would get up every single day and they'd have to make, you know, the bread fresh every day because they would eat it all through the day. So I can't remember her job. I think her job was the bread, and another one would make pies, and you eat all those too. So I mean, every morning they got up and they would just start again. And you know, those recipes were embedded. Yes, please. Were embedded in their brains because they did it. She actually had black pans that went in the wood stoves that were similar to this, but just a bit black. And she told me, I want you to have these. These are very valuable. And so I want to give these to you. And I just chuckled because, you know, nobody uses wood stoves. I was not that valuable. But back in the day, my mixing bowl in the freezer and my beaters, so everything was cold. And I bowl and use good old I've got about 3 cups of whipping cream. I'll go about half cup of sugar, probably a teaspoon of vanilla. And good vanilla's
Good vanilla's that work
is good.
Set your tables and what do you use for dishes and how do you lay it?
When we got our new shops, we had more area to spread out. We've got some long rectangle tables like this, and we'll set it up buffet style that way. Otherwise, at home, in the house, we have lots of bowls, and we sit down and it's family style. And so I actually have my branding utensils, and so you've got real utensils and a real plate.
But she does always have a nice
For the holidays, we do.
But even just with the guys, I think she puts out a nice tablecloth. She has iced tea, lemonade.
Oh, yeah.
She makes the homemade whipped cream, and she doesn't think it's special, but people don't do that.
She tells me not everybody does it
And I
that
tell
way.
her, I try and tell her, like, you do all this awesome stuff.
Paper napkins, things like that?
Sometimes she just speaks.
Sometimes it's cloth. Like you to start.